That's right. Good afternoon, folks. And yes, this was absolutely inspired by my viewing of the NHL trade deadline special just earlier this afternoon. So, anyone who's not a fan or doesn't understand or doesn't know what this song is, this is, of course, the theme song for the American Dream, just Dusty Rhodes. And I'm honored to be able to play it to introduce us to yet another breaking news episode. Braden, I feel like we're doing these once, sometimes twice a day. This time we have yet another quarterback. Actually, no, we have several. Ignore that on the screen right now because we are not going to start with that. We are starting with Matt Ryan. Very predictably, he gets traded. He's heading to the Indianapolis Colts. This obviously is a direct result of this team's pursuit of Deshaun Watson and it backfiring. And we kind of talked about it when we talked about Deshaun Watson getting traded. What happens to Matt Ryan? And I thought there's no way he goes back to Atlanta. And here we are, less than 48 hours later, and Matt Ryan is now an Indianapolis Colt. And the Colts continued the tradition of picking up veteran at the end of the rope quarterbacks. But this is a little bit better than Philip Rivers, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty interesting kind of couple days for Matt Ryan because it seems like Atlanta was kind of exchanging messages back and forth with him throughout this process. So it's kind of like he really got a gift here, being able to kind of leave an Atlanta team that's not really ready to compete right now and somewhat help in choosing his next destination in a Colts team that perfectly built for his play right now. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception out there right now, thinking like he's too far gone past the line. But I think among older quarterbacks, he's still one of the better ones. It's not like Ben Roethlisberger in the pop gun offense. He can still kind of work to all three areas of the field, and I think there's a lot that makes sense with this fit here as far as a team that has great offensive line and a running game that can wear opponents down. So Matt Ryan really doesn't have to do as much on his own as he did the last few years here.
Yeah, look, I think he would have been perfectly fine riding out these last few years of his career with the Falcons, knowing that they probably weren't going to be that competitive no matter what they did. I mean, this is a team that is, in my opinion, probably not that close to competing, and I'm sure he would have been fine with that until they went after Deshaun Watson, and
Mhm.
that's when things changed because all of a sudden Matt Ryan is like, no, how no, you clearly saw him as a better option. And yeah, I mean, obviously, you look at the younger, option that you could possibly have for 10 years and all that. But, for a guy who led you to a Super Bowl, not a win, obviously, but, to a Super Bowl appearance and has been, I know we've talked about the last 20 years or so of golden age of quarterbacks because we've seen some great ones come through. But Matt Ryan doesn't get often mentioned, and he's been a fairly consistent, I'd say, elite quarterback for pretty much his entire career. And you know what? Good for him. He's going to a team, a Colts team that I don't know if they're just a quarterback away, especially in this conference. I mean, the AFC. Good God! I mean, Tom Brady's the happiest person in the world. He just came back to a division that no longer has Drew Brees, no longer has Matt Ryan, and is getting Jameis Winston back. I'd say that's 3 wins right in a row for him. So sorry, Saints fans. Sorry, Jameis Winston fans. It is what it is. But um, look, the reality of it is, it's going to be tough to emerge out of this conference. But the Colts, I mean, easily just made their chances better. I mean, who knows who they were going to have at quarterback? They had Carson Wentz last year, and I thought they were a pretty good team in spite of him. This time, I think you have a veteran quarterback that, like, yeah, you know what? I'll take him over Baker Mayfield. I know we talked about it right before we got on the air. I'll take him over Baker Mayfield because I know what Baker Mayfield is. I don't see like, maybe some team will go out and say, you know what, we think we can get the most out of Baker. I think we've seen the most out of Baker Mayfield. So for me, the Colts, that would be a dead end move. Go for the older quarterback, take those couple years. I'd imagine he's 2 years, maybe three. He has 2 years left in this contract. Take that and continue to build your team and try to compete now and look for that quarterback of the future over the next couple seasons.
Yeah, and I think it's just kind of interesting to look at the patience of Indianapolis. They get not necessarily a game-changing package back from Washington for Wentz. But the biggest thing is Wentz' entire contract is going to be paid from Washington, so that was a big deal. And then even though kind of took them a while to get back into the race, so to speak, and find their guy. I mean, they're really no worse for wear. And talking about Baker Mayfield and Wentz, I mean, he's really the anti. Can't really say it right now. Anti.
Antithesis.
Yeah, yeah. Sorry.
Don't worry, I can't say rural without continuing the word without. I'll just keep going on and on like rural, and it's okay. It happens. It happens to the best of us.
But yeah, the opposite basically of those guys. I mean, you know what you're getting. He's a lot more under control, and I think the biggest thing is, I mean, he did have 12 interceptions last year, but I think when you really look at him, you kind of know what you're going to get game to game. And I think game managers in today's NFL maybe is a little bit more of an appealing option for some teams right now compared to what it used to be. I mean, sitting and watching Alex Smith for a few years, it was definitely tough in certain moments, but I think you could see growth for certain teams and certain players around guys like that throughout the years. And I think Indy, with this still kind of younger core and a team I think can win games in multiple ways, it's, I think, definitely a benefit for them here in being patient and finding a guy with this kind of style.
Real quick before we grab the attention of the cap as crap people, are they the best team in the division? Are they better than Tennessee right now with Matt Ryan?
I think so. Yeah, I would say they're probably a little bit more well-rounded defensively. I think just at all three levels. I think Tennessee definitely has some work to do in the back seven, especially the secondary. So we'll see kind of what they do in the draft. And even after adding Robert Woods, I don't really think it's too far-fetched to think the Titans should add another receiver. We saw Julio Jones get released, and who knows, maybe he winds up back with Matt Ryan in Indianapolis. I know Darius Leonard was kind of campaigning for that a little bit already, but I just think the Colts are maybe a little more well-rounded, and like you said, maybe not a quarterback away, but I think just a lot of different ways that they can win, and I think there's just a lot more safe kind of play that they really provide week after week.
Yeah, and like I mentioned right before I asked you that question, as you can see on the screen, folks, or if you're listening post this broadcast on the podcast version of this, of which you can find Full Press NFL Podcast. Just check it out, download it, see all of our other great episodes. Look, this is, I know there's been a lot of narrative surrounding the salary cap and how it's kind of fictitious and you can do whatever you want. Look, the reality of it is you can't. Teams that often are in a position where they are restructuring to get under the cap. We just saw New Orleans just, quote unquote, do magic. They do magic that, the problem that they created. So I'm not going to, give them credit for doing magic. They're pulling their asses out of the fire, essentially. These are teams that aren't necessarily competitive over the course of a long period of time. If you look at the most consistent franchises, the teams that win over and over and over again, they don't do this. I'm talking about New England. I'm talking about, Kansas City. I'm talking about Pittsburgh. I mean, again, it doesn't necessarily mean multiple Super Bowl championships, but I'm talking about being competitive and being in the mix year in and year out. And these teams are that. And one of the things they have in common is they don't abuse the cap. Now, again, you look at the Rams and you say, okay, they've gone all in, this, that, and the other. They have a finite window of opportunity to maximize this. And eventually things are going to hit them. If you look on the screen again, $40.5 million. Matt Ryan will count against Atlanta's salary cap next year. Now, they may still recover from this in a few years, but the point is they're going to be crushed by this year. It's going to make it impossible for them to compete. So they went bargain hunting for a quarterback, and we're going to get to that here in just a minute. And, there's going to be repercussions, across the board for this team. Now, let's face it, like, okay, great. Say they're able to withstand this hit. Where they are as a franchise right now, who is Marcus Mariota going to throw to?
Kyle Pitts, and that's kind of funny how he winds up in this conversation because they could have had a few quarterbacks in last year's first round, and obviously Not every quarterback's necessarily going to have the same kind of result in every situation, but I think you just look at where Atlanta was at, and that's definitely no slight against Pitts, but I think you eventually just have to take those kind of chances when you have that opportunity, or at least trade down if you don't think you necessarily have your guy that year. So it's really funny how all this has kind of worked out the year after that 2021 NFL draft. But yeah, for Kyle Pitts, I mean, really, he's got a big opportunity now.
Yeah, well, I mean, you have to wonder too what he's thinking and what some of these players are thinking, because this was a self-created situation for Atlanta. They could have stayed 100% clear of Deshaun Watson, and Matt Ryan would still be their quarterback right now, and would likely be their quarterback until he retires. And then you go about figuring out the rest of the situation. Whatever, you got to figure that out. But right, so I'm sitting there laughing, thinking of all this it's the Atlanta Falcons that are sitting there, and I'm just getting this image of Arthur Blank at the end of Super Bowl 51 that just blanks, pun intended, I guess, blank stare of like, what the hell just happened? And that's what I feel like the Falcons fans are like, wait a minute, what just happened? Like 2 days ago, we were, putting Deshaun Watson banners up on the side of the Mercedes Dome. And next thing you know, now we don't have Deshaun Watson. Now we don't have Matt Ryan, and you have Marcus Mariota, who's look, it's a fine option, and there's been worse situations. And to be honest, I'd rather go with Marcus Mariota than Baker Mayfield as well, because guess
Yeah.
what? You don't have to give up anything for him. And you know what? If it doesn't work out, your franchise isn't like if you go out and make a trade for Baker Mayfield and it fails, you're going to get criticized more than if Marcus Mariota doesn't work out because you
Hmm.
signed him. So yeah, I mean, look, this is a bad situation for Atlanta. Like I said, I mean, the happiest person in all of this is Tom Brady and the
Right.
Buccaneers. I mean, they're sitting back looking at the Falcons, like not that the Falcons were competitive at all prior to this, but you take their best player off the field, and Kyle Pitts maybe notwithstanding, but you take Matt Ryan off that field for him. All of a sudden, you're like, oh, okay, well, what are you without an elite quarterback? Well, you're a lot worse than what you already were. You go over to Carolina, who's swung and missed more than Chris Davis on trying to acquire a quarterback. Now, who they have? Well, they still have Sam Darnold. And you know what I mean? If they want to re-engage with Cam Newton, by all means, go for it. Maybe they go and get Baker Mayfield, but then you're talking about the same exact situation, if not worse than what you had. Maybe slightly better. No, I'm less of a fan of Sam Darnold than I am of Baker Mayfield. So, um, look, I think Atlanta really, kind of kicked themselves and just really tripped over their own feet in this whole situation. Uh, I don't feel bad for him. This is the crazy thing about how quickly this came together. I was in the process of writing something saying Matt Ryan should want out. Well, I was right. I just didn't get a chance to actually write the whole thing because this happened. And look, Matt Ryan was looking at it and saying, "Hey, now I'm going to use this to an advantage." Reportedly, the report that he tried to get a contract extension was not true. So, kind of the feeling that I got, just again when this whole thing came about was like, if I'm Matt Ryan, I don't want anything to do with the Falcons. I want to go ahead. I want to move on. I want to try to find a place that perhaps might be again just a veteran quarterback away from at least being competitive, because the Falcons aren't going to be competitive with or without him, especially without him. So
Yeah.
good for Matt Ryan. The AFC continues to just stockpile quarterbacks, literally every single quarterback except for Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I was just thinking before we got on here. I think honestly, every AFC team for the most part is probably now set. I mean, you could maybe still have a rookie drafted this year somewhere, or a training camp battle, but I think really with Trubisky going to Pittsburgh and now this, and of course the Watson domino, I think pretty much the AFC is now set. So it's just going to be like we've kind of talked about, who's going to win out in this battle of attrition, and who's going to kind of get hot at the right time late in the season.
I was gonna say, is it Tua? Is Tua the one most on the hot seat in the AFC right now? And
Um,
that's kind of like not like half. I'm running
yeah.
through the quarterbacks in my head right now, but you're kind of right. Like AFC West, forget about it. AFC East, again, that's where Tua is.
Mhm.
AFC North, yeah, I mean you're pretty much set up there. AFC South, Trevor Lawrence. You have, well, I mean, Marcus Mariota. Oh no, no, I'm sorry. What am I thinking? AFC South. You have Matt Ryan,
Davis Mills.
Davis.
He,
Okay, okay,
I think
maybe
kind of
Davis Mills, but I don't know.
yeah,
I mean, Davis Mills had a pretty darn good season last year for
yeah.
a pretty
Out of
crappy
all
Texans team. So
out of all the rookies last year, I mean, I think he's one that honestly showed the most growth. Kind of after all the jokes of
mhm.
him, not really being the guy that was maybe athletic enough or anything like that.
where
Definitely
where have
mobility.
we
That's
heard that before?
something very overrated, in today's judgment of quarterback. So yeah, I'm honestly kind of excited to see what he could do in a division that definitely not something they're probably going to be at the top competing at, but maybe make a little more noise this season.
Yeah, and look, I mean, that's the thing. We kind of talk about this with Buffalo, and how not being in that AFC West is kind of like working to their advantage because they don't have to go through that constant beat up that you're going to go through being in that division. And kind of the same thing with Matt Ryan and this Colts team. I mean, yeah, Tennessee's pretty good. Jacksonville is kind of the wild card, new coach. They've made a lot of
Mm.
noise in free agency. What's Trevor Lawrence going to be in year two? I think those are valid questions, certainly ones that, none of us have the answers to. Some people might think they do, but the reality of it is we have to see what's going to happen. So maybe Jacksonville gets better, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, this AFC South is actually pretty darn good. I mean, it's not going to be, the AFC West, but um, so we'll see. But either way, all I know is it's going to be you're going to be hard pressed at least heading into the season. I know we're looking at all this on paper, and
Hmm.
some of these moves aren't going to work out. Maybe Matt Ryan takes a huge step back, and or maybe who knows what happens. Um, but we're it's going to be hard pressed to before the season figure out which 7 teams are going to end up in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I think I mean, the last couple of years, there's been a lot of teams that seems like they had a good enough resume. I know, Miami a couple of years ago, 10-6, did not get in. So there's definitely been those teams too these last couple of years that seem like they have a spot locked up, and then you enter a game where you could get in with a tie, and the Chargers still don't get in, or something like that. So it's already been very slim the last couple of years, and it looks like it's going to be even more hectic.
Yeah, and yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's gonna be fun to see just how it all plays out. Again, I mean, I would say right now the betting favorite to say to be the top seed would have to be Buffalo.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, this isn't and again, this isn't just an advantage of, like I said, being in a division that doesn't include being the AFC West. Like you can make a case again that he may be the best quarterback in the conference. I think right now Mahomes, that's pretty much who the most folks are going to lean towards. Maybe you're going to get some Russell Wilson fanatics, and maybe now. Not that I've seen too many of them, but maybe some crazy BC alums that are big Matt Ryan fans. I don't know, but for the most part, I think most people will agree that either Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes are probably one of them are the best quarterback in the conference. So in that sense, I just think that Buffalo is probably going to be the betting favorite for most of the season, assuming they don't take a massive step back to
Right.
be that team that wins that one seed at least. So you have all those other teams basically fighting for 6 spots. And the reward might be to face one of those other teams in the wild card round. So say you are Kansas City and you have the second best record in the conference. Maybe it's the second or third best conference or record in the entire league. And you got to go play a team that has a potentially future Hall of Fame quarterback in the wild card. Right? It's going to be a pretty interesting way to see how this all shakes out because again, the great thing about football is it's any given Sunday,
Hmm.
and it doesn't matter what the totality of the season was. It's what happens then and there. And we've seen some funky things happen on Sundays and Mondays and Saturdays and sometimes Thursday and Wednesday too. I think we had a Tuesday game a year and a half ago. So pretty much every day of the week, there's potential something like that's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think the last couple of years too. I mean, you're seeing a lot more teams in the playoffs, kind of really exhaust some playoff demons a lot more easier than it just seemed like it was for them a decade ago. And just seeing all the teams that have kind of gone from worst to first, or you know, first round, top of the first round, to Super Bowl. It's pretty crazy some of the turnarounds we've seen the last couple years. So with these quarterbacks, I think anything's, like you said, anything's possible any given Sunday.
And this is actually, I don't know, like this is a good question. How's this going to impact the draft? Because, like, obviously, Indy's still going to be looking for a quarterback of the future, and there are teams that necessarily are not going to be closing the door on looking for a quarterback. But I don't know if this was that strong of a quarterback draft, anyways. So, do I think a quarterback's going to go in the first round? I think so. But would you say that one would be surprising to you?
Not necessarily. I think really there's a lot of buzz right now on Malik Willis kind of really being
Mhm.
um the only name that I think a lot of teams are comfortable in taking a chance on. I think there's definitely going to be the teams that'll be scared of Kenny Pickett's hand size and all that. So I think really I wouldn't be surprised now if there's a team that trades up maybe with Detroit at number 2. It seems like Detroit's getting a lot more buzz too, that they could go quarterback already this year and have him sit at least a little bit behind Jared Goff. And I think, even if it's not necessarily a good quarterback class, I think if you feel like he's your guy to kind of turn your franchise around, and kind of the moves Detroit's made lately, bringing in DJ Chark with Amon-Ra St. Brown now, and some of the moves they've made, kind of makes a lot more sense. So I think if they feel like he's their guy, they shouldn't necessarily wait to pull the trigger. But I really don't see more than probably 2 at this point in time.
Yeah, and and that's the thing compared to last year where you had 5 in the first round, and that was kind of the centerpiece or the focus point of many of the draft discussions heading into last year was the quarterbacks. How are they going to shake out? Who's going who? Are the Patriots going to do this? Or this team going to do that? Um, yeah, so it will be, see what sort of collateral damage, so to speak, all these moves have. But kind of to your point just a few minutes ago, yeah, it looks like the entire AFC is, there's no question at quarterback. And again, if you really want to split hairs, maybe the Texans and Miami. But
Right.
even then, it's like that's a like a half season worth of struggles away from actually becoming a discussion for those two players. Tua, because of obviously some prior, struggles and kind of the back and forth and all this new regime. Who knows what's going to happen 8, 9 games in the season if he's struggling. Same goes with Davis Mills. He might have had a really fine first season. Maybe that's it. We don't know. We'll find out. Before we get off the air, not really surprising to see Jameis Winston head back to New Orleans. I know New Orleans was obviously looking for an upgrade. I think Jameis Winston was given an opportunity to kind of see what's out there and just test the market. It's going to be interesting, and I said this. It might have been with you on our last broadcast. It'll be interesting to see what happens for Jameis without Sean Payton.
Hmm.
I think he had a very nice, season up until he got injured in that game prior to last year. So I mean, there is potential for him. I don't know how good this Saints team is going to be. I mean, I feel like no one's mentioned this in months, but I have no idea what's going to happen with Alvin Kamara. I mean,
Hmm.
let's not forget. I mean, this guy's facing some pretty serious charges in a pretty serious situation, so he may not even be on the football field for the New Orleans Saints at the start of the season. So, yeah, I'm not that surprised that he's coming back. Do you see this? I mean, clearly, it kind of looks like it's the only option for New Orleans at this point.
Yeah, and I think he seemed like he was wanting to go back there. I think he was pretty happy with New Orleans last season. Like you said, the Sean Payton change definitely throws a wrench into it. But I think you saw what he was able to do kind of last year and cut down on the turnovers. Just really more of an attacking style of play than we've seen from him in a while. And I think that like you said, kind of what's around him though. I mean, even Michael Thomas. Expected to be back this year, but I mean, it's really been 2 full years now of not really knowing what you're going to get from him. So definitely seems like a team I think will probably go receiver one of their first couple draft picks this year. And like you said, I think the Alvin Kamara one, that's just one I'm kind of waiting on to see. Really, I think is either being the final nail in the coffin, so to speak, for New Orleans fates this season, or if they still maybe have a chance to outperform what their expectations are.
Yeah, like I said, and I've said it a few times, the happiest person in the room right now, besides me, is probably Tom Brady, and the Bucks, because the division is weakened further than what it was, and I know that's gonna be a catalyst for all the anti-Brady folks out there. And I get it, I understand. Come with all you got. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
shoot you down anyways. But yeah, you got a pretty open division for you. Even at this point, the team still needs to get better, but even at this point, I think they're the clear favorites. And just in the NFC in general, a week ago, if you would have asked me, it would have been Los Angeles, Tampa, and Green Bay. Now I'm like, well, I know Tampa's up there. I'm pretty confident that the Rams are going to be pretty good again. I have no idea what's going to happen with Green Bay now that Devontae Adams is gone. I have no idea. His last 30 games, 2,900 yards. Where are you going to replace that? I have no idea. So
Yeah.
the NFC is certainly a lot more wide open, but we continue to watch this AFC. All these AFC teams just go quarterback crazy. So I'd like to say this is the last time we're going to be doing one of these, but who knows? Maybe Baker Mayfield gets traded later today. If not, maybe he gets traded tomorrow. But he is likely on the move, or the next quarterback on the move. We'll see. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Give us a follow on Twitter at Full Press NFL. Head over to fullpresscoverage.com to check out all the NFL free agency stuff. And if you're a hockey fan, like I said, we just finished up our NHL trade deadline show. Check it out on our YouTube channel. And of course, go to fullpresshockey.com. So thank you, everyone. Have a great day, and we will see you soon.